Hi everyone, welcome to another episode. Today I'm going to show you guys round 6 of my Doeberl Cup 2024 chess tournament. So far we've gone through 5 rounds and I'm on 2.5 out of 5, so a 50% score, which I'm very happy with. In this round I am black against Tedric Lee. So I'll show you guys how I went in this game. So we played a Queen's Pawn opening, and I played the Grunfeld defense, which aims to counter-attack in the center and sort of attack the center with pieces instead of pawns. You'll see how I give up the center. So my opponent has a nice, strong center, and I've got, my pawns are all at the back here. So I've let him take the center with his pawns, and I aim to attack the center with my pieces. So double-edged opening, so you can see I get on with my attack. C5, it's already attacking the center, bishop's attacking the center, queen's attacking the center. So I get open lines to my pieces, my knight's going to come out, and it all revolves around attacking the center here. Rook to b1, so at this point I didn't really think of this move, so I'm out of theory already. So I decided to develop the knight, following a logical plan. So you know, when you get surprised in the opening, it's often good to follow a logical plan. I think looking back at it later, it would have been better to castle first, but this game's not too bad. So he pushes forward because you can see he's got 1, 2, 3 defenders of the d4 pawn, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers, so I'm threatening to win it. If my opponent were to play a move like bishop to e3, say, to defend the pawn, then I've got plans of, you know, playing later on bishop to g4 and pinning and undermining this defender. So I can always keep piling the pressure on this pawn here. I've also got moves like queen a5 coming out, which attacks that weak pawn and this weak pawn. So you can see I'm trying to go around his center and attack it from behind and from the sides. So he pushed forward. Now I can take this pawn with check. I didn't know the opening that well, so I was like, well, I don't know if I like that, because, for example, I could take with check and then something like bishop out. You know, I can't retreat because I'll lose my knight, so I've got to take it. And then this position, I've got to move my knight. I can't move it to this square, so because my bishop's now gone, and if I move it to this square, he just takes it and wins his piece back with a strong center and a really dominant queen in the center of the board here. So I'd have to move my knight probably somewhere back to the edge here. And yeah, I didn't really like this position, even though I am a pawn up. My opponent has a very easy way to castle, then push the pawn in the center and get a real clamp on my position. And my pieces are all in their starting squares. So for the cost of a pawn, he's got a very massive lead in development. Like if you look at my pieces, they're all back here. I haven't even castled yet. He's got every piece out in attack mode. So I didn't like the look of that. So I decided to play it safe. So after we played d5, I just decided to play knight to e5 and exchange pieces. And my idea was, if we exchange pieces, his center should become a bit weaker. With every piece that's exchanged, it becomes like there'll be weaknesses everywhere. Like here and here are weaknesses, queens can come out, and he's got less pieces to defend. Check and castle as well. So all the knights are gone, so it's just bishops. It's even bishops and pawns and rooks. Computer doesn't like this move. I probably could have taken a pawn, but there's a move like this sort of a move, which stops me from castling. I can't castle now because he'll take the piece, and if I take check and he gets his pawn back. So I didn't want to waste time with any tricks on him taking my stopping me from castling, so I just castled, play it safe. I am black after all, and I didn't know the opening that well, so keeping it safe was good. But when he played c4, I was thinking to myself, I started getting worried about potential, say for example I played a move just to like defend my pawns. I was worried about potential moves like f4. I know I can go check, it's all good, but later he's going to get e5, in, and maybe f5 in, and he's going to get, you know, a pretty good kingside attack going. Notice how I'm just drawing arrows everywhere, but you can see how his pieces can come into the attack pretty quickly behind his strong central pawn. And for example, my rook over here, notice how my opponent's rook can come in and go across, whereas my rook to defend over on the king side, it's got nowhere to really get there. I can't move it anywhere across. So yeah, he could quickly swing the pieces over and attack me, and I felt a bit vulnerable. So I decided to go for an attack myself. I thought, let's attack him before he attacks me. And you know, my rook's in a position here to open up. So, you know, combined with bishop here, I could have put pressure on the pawn here. So I decided to go with an attack. You'll see he swaps pieces, and then I take with a rook, and then he went queen to e2, which threatens my bishop. Now I thought for a while, and I thought I could set a trap for my opponent. In the end, the trap doesn't actually work, but in this case it did work. So I played rook over, ignoring my opponent's threat. So my opponent has a threat which he played, g4. Now I saw this move before I played my rook on a to f8, and I thought to myself, I've got a good chance here to try and mix things up, and I can make a sacrifice, but I can get him to open up his king. So I thought, you know, for example, my rook can come in, my queen can come in, and I might have a chance to attack. I am on a 50% score, and I want to try and, if I can try and win a game, that'll be good. I feel like it's even now, like the pawns, he's got a bit of an advanced center, but with only a few pieces left, it's not a big deal for me. So I decided to play this in a vigorous manner and try and go for a kingside attack. So by him playing g4, I actually lose a piece. So you'll notice the queen attacks the bishop here, and the rook defends the bishop. Now my rook's attacked. If I move my rook, I can't move my rook anywhere on this file to keep contact, because the bishop covers that square and the pawns cover those squares. So my rook is effectively trapped. Now I saw this, and after the game it was found to be a mistake, but we'll see how my opponent went. So my plan was to go rook f3, let him take the bishop, and then check. Now I was hoping that I would either have a kingside attack, or at the very least a perpetual check where I can just keep checking him and get a draw. So I thought I was safe. Unbeknownst to me, I'm actually losing, but we'll see. So he played king h1, only move. Can't bring the queen back because my rook's defending it. And then I played rook back to f5, trying to chase away his queen. Now, one of my ideas was, if the queen moves away from, I guess, the contact with these two squares, say he goes queen c7, going for an attack, something like that, I've got check, and then king comes over and I've got a potential check again. I know in this case he can block, but say he couldn't, say there was another way. That's probably a bad example. Say he went queen there, just to show my example. Check, there, check. Notice I can't checkmate because the bishop, luckily for him, covers. Although I could play a move like this potentially, aiming to go for a checkmate, which probably would win. I'm pretty sure he could try and get out of it, but yeah, this is probably going to be good for me. I've got a kingside attack going. At worst case, I could check here. If he moves the king over, it's a checkmate, and if he blocks with the queen, I can still go check, give up, and I'll have two rooks against the queen. You know, probably he'd take a pawn, I'd take a pawn, and then it'd probably end up with a pretty even position, double-edged but even. But he didn't do that. He played back here. He played after check. I played there. He played queen to g3, which looks like a good move, defending his king. But I found another trap. So that was what I saw up to here in my original calculation, and I saw if he plays queen to defend, you'll notice that this rook is a bit undefended. That rook b1 move early on, which I didn't quite understand, I guess it's on an open file, has actually let him down. So now I've got this fork, and I took the rook. Now, he can win. He does get to win an exchange back. So it ends up with queen and rook versus queen and rook. I am up a pawn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after all of that, he won a piece, and now he's lost a piece. So he stuffed up. That's why sometimes it's good to play attacks like this. If you played the best move, I would have lost. But in this case, it paid off because he didn't play the best move under the pressure, and I ended up getting a superior position. It's not correct chess, but yeah, it paid off for me in this case. You might ask me why I brought my queen back. He asked me the same question after the game. He's like, why don't you just munch the pawns? Which is also fine. For example, take. I didn't want to give him any activity. I was thinking he's going to get his rook out. And I can keep munching, for example. He can push the pawn up. Or not even, he could even just take. Either way. I just thought, he's going to get in. I could just Pac-Man everything up, and at the end I could probably just go rook there. And this is fine for me. I'm up 3 pawns. In hindsight, this is what I should have done. However, I decided to bring my queen back to the center. Sometimes, having a strong centralized queen is a good way to maintain control of the position. So I knew I was a pawn up. I didn't want to give him any chances. And so after takes, you can see my pieces are strongly in the center and his pieces are in defensive positions. I could always try and take this pawn later, and I also have ideas of trying to win his queen and just ending the game on the spot. Or for example, a move like h6. So I wanted to try and keep the pressure on him. So he plays d6, good move. He's trying to get his queen in the check, give me a bunch of checks. And then f4, another good move. I'm threatening basically checkmate or winning the queen. So he gives his king some breathing room. And you'll notice if my rook could get down to this 7th rank, I'd be crushing. But at the moment, unfortunately, it's blocked off. It can't quite get there. I have to go down and across and around, which takes some time. I decided to just go to a rook and pawn ending with check swap off the queens, and this is a winning ending. Let's be honest, it's definitely a winning ending. And then you'll see how I play it, but actually this actually shows off a very my opponent's resilience. He kept playing and watch what happens. So I'm bringing my king up, and I thought to myself, this pawn's weak, this pawn's weak, this pawn's weak. I'm up a pawn. This should be an easily winning ending, and I started rushing things a bit. So check, and I played there b6 to try and supposedly fix the pawn, and my plan was to go behind it, and then start pushing this one up, and up. And then if he goes back to try and stop it, I'll win another pawn, and I'll be 2 pawns up, easily winning. The problem is I get a bit too comfortable in this position. I thought it was an easy win, so I got a bit slack. I got a bit careless, and I missed the move c5. And you may think to yourself, it doesn't matter, just take it. Check. Cool, I'm up 2 pawns. And you would be right, it's still winning. It's a winning position. Just fast forward a bit, a few checks. I made this move putting my king in the corner, and then when he played h4, I realized to myself, why did I do that? I should have just played king up here. I know he can check me and then go back, and then when he checks me and then play there, g5. So my king's shielded, and then I can have an idea of advancing my pawn, advancing my king, advancing my other pawn, checking him, driving him back. It's a very slow and steady, but it wins. Instead of this, I actually tied myself in a little bit of a knot here, and then I started getting stressed out and panicking a bit, going, how am I going to make progress? If I move the pawn up, he's going to take it. If I move my king back, he just goes check. And if I try and come this way, he wins the pawn. If I go either to, for example, the bottom, he just checks me again and checks again. Check. And every time I try and come up, he wins the pawn. So I then have to go back, check, back, and then he goes here, and we're in the exact same position. How do I make progress? So I started looking at the position going, I can't see how to make progress. I was getting a bit low on time too, and it was late in the game, and I was thinking to myself, this was an easy win, what have I done? I started questioning myself. surely 2 pawns up in a rook and pawn ending, this has got to be winning. Like, it should just be autopilot. So I ended up playing so after h4 I played a4, check, pawn up, and then he went king h3, and then I played, would you believe, a move here that turns this position from a win, an easy win, plus it's minus 3.8, so I'm up minus almost like a piece and a pawn. It turns the position into a draw, a theoretical draw, even though I'm 2 pawns up. So can you guys guess the move? There's a move. This is an instructive rook ending for everyone, which I've learned a lot about rook ending since this game. I played a2, draw. Now you might be thinking, how the hell is that different to that position? Well, in this position, let me just show you the game, and then I will go back to this position quickly to show you how that 1 pawn move throws away the win. After all my play so far, so a2, my opponent takes a pawn, and I get it. So I'm 2 pawns up still. Surely this is a win. I get my king over, I get my pawn up. You'll notice that he just keeps hiding behind the pawn here. If I move this rook away, he takes the pawn. If he moves his king to this square, then I can play the famous rook over here. And then if he takes the pawn, I go check. Remember, his king's here. And then I win his rook. But as long as he keeps his king on g2 or h2, I can't swing the rook over. So my rook's trapped. My pawn's trapped. I've got a pawn and a king against a king. And if I do anything, bringing my king up, he can just keep checking if he checks me along here. If I go back that way, he goes back to the bottom and checks me along the back rank. So I actually can make no progress. I give up a pawn, and I try and get down to this position. But with his king in front of the pawn, this is again a theoretical draw. And now that I've played my pawn up to here, I've got nowhere to hide my king in front of my pawn. So, and I can't get rid of his. If I check him, he just moves up. And now his aim is just to check me along the back rank. Check. King goes check, 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 check. And at this position, we agreed a draw because I realized I had stuffed up and there's no way out of it. Going back now, quickly. I know you guys want to see this. So, the way to win, instead of playing a3, it would have been to play g5. Believe it or not. This is actually giving up a pawn actually wins. I'll run you through it. So, take, and he can't take. If he takes the pawn here, what I failed to notice, because I was thinking I don't want to give up a pawn, I failed to notice I have check and win the rook. Just missed it. But somehow I just missed it. So it looks like it gives up a pawn, but actually it doesn't. So in this position, this would be winning. So say he went king back instead of taking the pawn. I don't even need that pawn. This pawn has no effect on the game. The key is to win with this pawn. But notice how the difference between a3 and a2 is there's a hole here. Once the pawn goes to a2, there's no hole. So that slight hole, I can give up a pawn, go down to 1 pawn, check, bring my rook over, and push my pawn here. It lets me get my rook out, because I can check. Before, when that pawn was a2, I couldn't move my rook at all. So giving my rook that 1 extra square to allow a check is the difference between winning and losing. So going back to this position, if I go this way, if he tries to keep checking me, he eventually takes it, say. The other option is, it also gives my king a hole to hide in behind the pawn. Notice there's two ways to win. You can bring the rook out, or you can hide the king in here. And then go for, look at that, go for a rook block, and then I'm going to try and queen. If he goes down there to try and stop me queening, I pin his rook to his king and win. So it's a good thing to remember if you do have a rook pawn in a rook and king and pawn ending. Don't move it up to this last square. If you're white, I guess this square or this square. Make sure you've thought about it very carefully, because once you make that pawn move, the game is literally a draw. unless it's in this position where the king's far away. So yeah, I hope you guys learned a good lesson about rook endings in this one. You might not ever have this position, but if you do, please remember my game. So another draw. Missed the win on this one, unfortunately. So I am now on 3 out of 6, still a 50% score, with 3 rounds to go. I'll see you guys for round 7.